mixers, usually when we drink single malt whiskey, when we talk about Glenmorangie, we're going to drink it maybe with a block or two of ice or some still water. But Glenmorangie's been always at the forefront of innovation with our extra maturation process, and through that, I mean, the Glenmorangie Original is created to be a very, very light whiskey, to be a very crisp whiskey through our use of those tall stills and the American oak cask, and that generally lends itself to a more balanced palate. Yeah. But definitely, women all over the world are starting to drink a lot more whiskey. I always say that 20 years ago, when you saw an ad in the newspaper or in the media of a single malt or a Scotch whiskey brand, it was an old white man with a beard sitting on a leather couch in front of a fire reading a book, maybe with a cigar. I think that's changed over the last 15 years, in that our consumers are changing more towards women, or to have a better ratio between male and female consumers, but the consumers are also becoming younger. So consumers are becoming younger. We're getting a lot more different ways and times that we consume whiskey. So 15 years ago it was usually after dinner, before you go to bed, as a nightcap. These days, yeah, it's not 12 o'clock yet, but late afternoon, to have a really nice Glenmorangie on a little bit of ice, nice and fresh, very light, it's a beautiful drink, and you can drink it at any time of the day. Sorry, yes?
I would like to know the value of whiskey imports and then I would like to know from a price to
Okay. You might have to help me with that, Nicholas. The question was just the value of whiskey importing into Tanzania. Do you know figures?
If I can understand the question, is in terms of pricing.
Pricing?
Yes.
No,
No.
the value, how the amount, the total value of whiskey.
Okay. So, do you have any idea how much whiskey we import to Tanzania?
That's very difficult. I mean, if you think about Glenmorangie, yeah, we have an idea, but we don't really communicate on these kind of figures because it's not easy first.
Yeah.
And then if you think about the global market of whiskey, it's huge also, but nobody has consolidated information. Even the biggest groups, it's very difficult because the route, what we call the route to market, are very difficult to monitor. So it's not clear.
I think one thing that we can say is generally of all the whiskey that's consumed in the world, whiskey is the number 4 consumed spirit, and about 3% of all the whiskey that's consumed in the world is consumed on the continent of Africa. So that would be a fair assessment. When it comes into total values, there's so many different whiskey companies doing imports. Of course, we can't give a perspective on everybody who's in the business. But 3% of all whiskey consumed in the world is on the continent and is growing. That's why we have events like these going on.
Africa is certainly one of the biggest growing markets for Scotch whiskey, and specifically to Glenmorangie. The challenges that we face with Glenmorangie is that we cannot make this overnight. For us to make a bottle of Glenmorangie takes at least 10 years. So we have to manage the stocks that we send out globally. Certain markets don't get all the stock that they want, but I mean, it just takes a really long time for us to make it.
And Neil, just to address another question, you asked about, is there a plan to open a distillery here? See, the one thing, and I think you could speak on this, the one thing that makes Glenmorangie unique is because it's a Scotch, and Scotch can only be distilled in Scotland, and it has to be matured there for at least 3 years. So that being the case, Glenmorangie, being true to its roots as a Scotch, can only be distilled there at the Glenmorangie.
We make Glenmorangie exactly the same way